and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe. I'm here for the paper talk this morning. Sorry I'm a little bit late, slightly delayed with things, but we're here now, and that's all that matters. We're going to be looking at Kai Havertz. We're going to be looking at Chris Smalling as well. So it's some very exciting news coming up. The order is working, that's all good, everything's good. How's everyone doing at home today? It is Wednesday, July the 10th. I like to keep people abreast of what day it is, because obviously not leaving the house very often leads people to forget sometimes. And I know I'm guilty of that myself, so just like to remind everyone exactly what day it is. Morning everyone, hope you're all doing well. We're going to be getting into this Kai Havertz news, and it's been going around for a while. We're going to look at where it's come from, what the chances of it are, whether he's going to go to Chelsea or not, because that seems to be the sort of rival option at the moment. And you know what, maybe he might well just go to bloody Bayern Munich, because they seem to sweep up everyone of his nationality and age in Germany, don't they? So, you know, there's a chance that neither of us get him, but we'll have a look at the chance of it and what the repercussions of us signing him will mean. Obviously, yesterday we tried to talk about this a little bit on the podcast, but we had too many technical difficulties, we had too many audio issues, me and Ronaldo, so we've made that podcast private for anyone who's wondering where it was or why there wasn't one. There was a podcast yesterday, but it only lasted 20 minutes, and it was riddled with sound errors because we're trying to get used to having people back in the studio. We're using different setup, different mics, different computers, and you know, just for that one yesterday, couldn't quite get it to work properly. So we'll get that fixed by Thursday, but we're going to cover some of the stuff that we covered yesterday. But actually, there's new stuff, so it won't be too much of a repeat. Don't worry about that. Let's get into it then. Kai Havertz opens the door to Prem transfer as Man United and Chelsea target, explains what he wants in a new club. Now this it also goes alongside Kevin Palmer on Twitter, who is a journalist for the Sunday World and the Herald and Goal and those kinds of publications, saying that Man United are making efforts to sign Kai Havertz, but a familiar story could develop here. Mr. Abramovich has dusted down his wallet and wants to bring him to Chelsea alongside Timo Werner. Clubs with an alternative revenue stream seem to have a big advantage this summer. Someone is trying to make a delivery here, but I'm not going to allow it. I can't allow it, unfortunately. So this is talking about what Kai Havertz is looking for in a club at Manchester. What do you want me to do, mate? This isn't meant to happen, is it? I get it. You want to come in, but I can't come and get a parcel off you at the moment. So, you know, you're gonna have to ring someone else. I don't even know how they've got in, to be honest. United are long-term admirers of Havertz, who is also believed to be a target for Real Madrid, Barcelona and Bayern Munich, but Chelsea have now emerged as the frontrunners for his coveted signature after beating Liverpool to RB Leipzig's Timo Werner. The Blues and United now have received a boost after Havertz revealed in an old interview that he wants to join a club where he can immediately win silverware. He said that he wants to win trophies because the team is always the priority. The success is collective. The individual trophies will come when you play well. I want to win the biggest trophies during my career, Champions League, World Cup or Euros. I don't think much about the individual ones. Bayern are probably the biggest club in Germany, and there are many players that were successful at a young age that went there. Therefore, I get linked with Bayern, but we'll see what happens. There are players that want to stay close to their friends or family, and others say, I want to live in another country. There's something clear. If you want to be a star in Germany, you can't go wrong in Bayern. He then says, I think I've picked up enough international experience at Leverkusen. I know the rhythm of these international matches, and I'm confident I can go abroad at any moment and play at clubs outside of Germany. So he's talking up his chances of leaving Bayern Munich, not joining Bayern Munich and leaving Germany, which is something you don't always see from young players. Something that's a bit more of a trend these days. It seems like Germany is one of the countries where, almost similarly to England, not quite as sort of secluded and as English players really stay in England very often, don't they? And German is a bit more like that than I would say any other club or any other country in Europe. You see a lot of French players all over. You see a lot of Italian players moving all over. But Germany seems to sort of sweep up and keep a lot of the best German players playing Germany. Toni Kroos is an obvious example of someone who doesn't. But generally speaking, Germany do tend to keep hold of their best talent. Now, him talking about the idea of moving to a club, moving abroad, does give me some hope that this deal could happen. It does give me some hope that he's willing to do that. Obviously, someone says a depot card has been left for you, probably, but got the video to do, and also I can't be touching stuff. What a professional, able to deal with anything thrown at him. Yeah, even a ringing phone. And I've made the whole video about the phone. That's how much of a professional I am. Yeah, and this again, that's an old interview, but alongside this story that's coming out in the last couple of days, that United are making efforts to sign Kai Havertz, but a familiar story could develop here, as I said before. Chelsea has dusted down their wallet and wants to bring Kai Havertz to Stamford Bridge alongside Timo Werner. Clubs with an alternative revenue stream seem to have a big advantage this summer. Now, that alternative revenue stream that's being touted there is this system that Chelsea seem to have with youngsters, where they will send 30 to 40 players out on loan and sell 5 or 6 every year. Get another crop in, send them out on loan, sell 5 or 6, and each year they're getting sort of 4, 5, 6 million for 4 or 5 players, and that's an extra 25 to 30 million quid that they're bringing in each transfer window. So that allows them to have a sort of an uninterrupted transfer revenue stream, as was alluded to there, which maybe puts them ahead of the likes of United, who we base almost all of our income on, sponsorships and on sales and on being sort of a powerhouse in terms of equipment and shirts and we sell sort of a lot of packages and a lot of deals and we're very much in with sponsors. We don't make much of our money from selling players. I mean, obviously we sold Lukaku for 65 million and we only spent, I think it was a net of around 80 million last summer. But United don't want to sell players for big money. United don't want to continually have this sort of trickle system that Chelsea have, where they're getting 10 to 15 million or 5 to 10 million for 3 or 4 players every summer. We kind of either sell one of our big players like Lukaku, or we get 6 or 7 million for people like we did for Chicharito. Like we just get. United notoriously don't get great money for transfers, and that is something that's not going to be protected as well during the current problems that we're seeing. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Havertz is one that even is United's first target. There was reports this morning as well saying that United are, for the first time in a while, have a fully structured, tiered system of who they would like to sign. So this isn't new. This is a lot of clubs do this, and United, I'm sure, do this. But instead of having this sort of Di Maria, Falcao type transfer policy where whoever the best player that comes along, no matter when they come along, the biggest name that becomes available, we'll try and sign them. We have 4 players in each position, and we work our way methodically through those players down. If he's not available, we go to number 2. If he's not available, we go to number 3. If he becomes available, we decide whether to get number 4 on loan and then come back from in a year, like as we saw, seemingly we have seen with Odi and Igalo and maybe Haaland. We tried to get Haaland in January. He chose to go to Dortmund. We got in Igalo on loan instead, sort of a stopgap player till we get back to that list that we had in the first place. The same thing seems to be happening with Jadon Sancho. I would assume he's first on that list, but this is why there are rumours of the likes of Kai Havertz who can play on the right. We've got Jack Grealish, we've got Donny van der Beek, we've got, again, Kai Havertz can play centrally. These are all people on that list. And it doesn't necessarily mean that because, we're after Van der Beek, we're after Havertz, we're after, Grealish, we're after Maddison, we're after Sancho. We're not going to get all these. All of these stories must be lies. That's not necessarily the case. We are approaching 4 or 5 different players. We like this lad. How much do you think he'll cost us? Okay, cool. We like this guy. How much do you think he'll cost us? When really we're putting most of our eggs in the Sancho basket, rather than putting all of them in there, which has been a problem with United in the past and can lead to, with rash transfers. Again, as we've seen, the likes of Fellaini was one of those, where we wanted Fabregas, or I think it was Fabregas that United wanted, and that transfer didn't come through. We wanted Toni Kroos, that didn't come through, so we ended up with Fellaini. Or you want, whoever you want, you end up with Fabregas, you end up with Falcao and Di Maria, just because, they're a bigger name than a player that could have come in and done the thing that we wanted. The same thing goes for, who was it? It was Perisic, wasn't it? Mourinho wanted Perisic, and we didn't get him because the club kind of said, no, you got players there already. So it looks as though now there's more of a cohesive transfer policy. There's a sort of an understanding that this is who Solskjaer wants, and we will try to get who Solskjaer wants for him. Someone saying there, for Sancho, it's probably Chiesa as a second choice. Yeah, it could be. Chiesa obviously plays in Italy, and we've been linked with him in the last few weeks. Again, as another example. Just because, we're not going to get all these lot, so these transfer rumours must be lies or they must be untrue. We are probably actively pursuing maybe 1 or 2 players in each position, and you sort of put the feelers out Oh, I wonder, speak to this guy's agent. Do you think he'd be open to a move to United? Okay, cheers. That kind of thing. For another 2 or 3 in each position. I wish we did. Can you use your Jesus powers to get us these players? I don't have any powers. My only Jesus powers are looking a bit like him. That's it. No actual powers, unfortunately. I would like us to look at Sarr as an alternative if we don't get Sanchez in Watford. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I think it's Watford he plays for. He scored that goal he scored a hat-trick against City, didn't he? Do you think Ole might implement a 5 at the back to incorporate Dalot with Aaron Wan-Bissaka as a right-sided centre-back? Not something I'd like to see done, but something I can see happening. I don't see it happening personally. I don't think we need a right-sided centre-back. I think if there's anything United need, it's a left-sided centre-back. We've got Lindelof, we've got Bailly, we've got Tuanzebe, who can all play at right-sided centre-back pretty well. Obviously, Harry Maguire plays left side when there's a 2, but I'm thinking when there's a 3, we've seen Luke Shaw come in there, who isn't a centre-back. But I doubt that we would see a position where we've got Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire and Aaron Wan-Bissaka as a back 3. I don't think he would do that with 2 essentially full-backs playing centre-back. I can't imagine that happening now. Joe has the charisma of a boiled cabbage. That is honestly really nice. Thank you. And I like boiled cabbage. I assume that's meant as an insult, but I like boiled cabbage, and so do the grandparents from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because all they've eaten for 12 years is cabbage and cabbage soup. So there's a lot of people who like boiled cabbage, mate. Thank you very much. Hey Joe, do you think Pogba could be sent out on loan to have a buyback next summer clause, assuming another is brought in who wants to beat United? No, I don't know. I don't really know what you're asking there, but I don't think there's any chance that Paul Pogba is going to go out on loan to anyone. No, I don't think that. Indeed, he would be a great signing. Do you think Van der Beek is coming as a possible replacement for either Lingard or Pereira? I think if he does come, he is a replacement for Lingard or Pereira, yeah. I don't know if he's definitely coming, but I think that's what he's bought, or that's what he is being sort of touted as. If he comes in, it's going to be as a replacement for one of those 2 players, you would assume. Van der Beek is a replacement for Pogba, I believe. That's what someone's saying there. It could be. I don't really think that he's the same kind of player as Pogba. I think he doesn't have the passing. Well, there's no one that's quite the same as Paul Pogba, is there? That's the problem with selling Paul Pogba. Pre-Maguire, Lindelof played left side. Yeah, he can play there, but I think he's more comfortable on the right. Let's move on to our second story today then. Someone said, I love boiled cabbage, so I must love you, Joe. See? Boiled cabbage is very popular, especially in the northwest. Move on to our second story then. For a boiled cabbage, you're a good presenter. See, everyone's getting nice now. Cheers, everyone. Yeah, I take it with a pinch of salt, which is also the best way to take boiled cabbage, because it can be very bland otherwise. Right, let's move on to our second story then. And we're looking at Chris Smalling and his potential move to Roma. I say potential, it's looking very likely at this point. This is Roma sporting director Paratici saying, we'll do everything we can to keep Smalling and Mkhitaryan, obviously former United player. They want to stay here. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to argue the case for Chris Smalling to come back at United. He's very much a known quantity in the Premier League, isn't he? We know what you get with Chris Smalling. Athletically good. He's got, he's very physically good. He's good in the air. He's not particularly good on the ball. Defensively, he's pretty good. Sometimes he gets caught out of position. We know what Chris Smalling is. Can be very good on his day. There's also that to be said about Chris Smalling. I think it was the Van Gaal's first season where Chris Smalling, I honestly think, alongside at that time, I think it was either John Terry or Vincent Kompany. I think Vincent Kompany. He was the best centre-back in the league for that season. But again, he struggles with playing the ball. Solskjaer obviously wants to be able to bring the ball out from the back. We've seen that with Harry Maguire. We've seen that with Victor Lindelof to a slightly lesser extent, but still much more than Chris Smalling. When we saw Lindelof playing next to Smalling in the last couple of seasons, you can tell the difference there, can't you? You can tell the difference of how they can bring the ball out, how comfortable they are on the ball, how they bring other people into the game. And then you see Maguire come in and make Lindelof look like Smalling. I think if you had Maguire next to Smalling, it would look like some sort of fluid bowl of gravy next to just like a marble, like bashing off 2 walls or something. Strange analogy. But you know what I mean? I think we've seen these levels go up from Smalling to Lindelof to Maguire. And I think we've got Lindelof and Maguire now. And I just don't think Smalling is going to come back into that side and do anything particularly that we haven't seen from him in the sort of previous 7 years of having Chris Smalling. But it does look like he's made a home for himself in Roma. He's settled in very well. He's played very well. He was, again, I'm not sure if official team of the season's right yet, but obviously I'm sure a lot of you know he's in the sort of FIFA team of the season, which I know isn't a particularly sort of trusted accolade, but it's something, isn't it? There's a suggestion, there's an implication that he has performed well. For Roma, we've all seen that. He's got a couple of goals, he's made some great tackles, put in some great performances for Roma. So I think it suits him to move there. I think it suits his game more there. It's a bit slower. You've got time on the ball as a centre-back. You don't get pressed in the same way. You can just lay the ball off to your midfield and let them do the work. It seems like he's found sort of a second wind in his career there. There are rumours of a sort of 10 to 12 million euro transfer, which again does seem low. He's 30 years old. 10 to 12 million euros isn't very much money, is it? But I guess you've got to sort of take the player into account a little bit. But I do get caught being sentimental with our transfers too often. We let people go for less money because it's the right thing for their career. When really, you sort of think, well, is he not worth 20 million euros to you? If you go into Roma and saying he's been arguably your best centre-back this season, he's an excellent addition, he's probably still got 3 or 4 years at least left in Italy because of the speed of the game, because of how quick he is to start with. Even if he loses a bit of pace, he's still going to be as quick as most centre-backs. He's still got 3 or 4 years left. Give him a 4-year contract. Is he not worth 20 million euros? Again, it's obviously it's not my money, and you want to do the best for the players and stuff. But I get caught a little bit, don't they, with being a bit sentimental with transfers, allowing things to happen, allowing ourselves to get taken advantage of in terms of transfer fees because it's the nice thing to do. And sometimes you just think, pay up if you want a good player, pay up. Savoy cabbage is the best. Holds gravy in the indentations in the leaves. Yeah, it's a very textured leaf, the Savoy. Good point. Wait, who is the gravy, who is the marble? Maguire is the gravy, because he's so fluid, he's so loose. Smalling is a sort of a bounce, is sort of a ricocheting, firm kind of object in the centre there. Smalling won everything you can win in England, don't take that away. I'm certainly not taking that away. I think like I said, I think he was the best centre-back in the league under Van Gaal, so I'm not trying to knock Chris Smalling. I think he's worth more than Roma are trying to give us for him. I'm very much a fan of Chris Smalling. You missed Jones. Love always from Smalling to Jones to Victor to Maguire. Yes, but Jones was there before, wasn't he? Actually, yeah. So that makes your point, not my point. Yeah, good point. Let's pretend Jones doesn't exist. Come on, he's been a great servant to this club. He's won the Premier League. He's won the FA Cup. He's won the Europa League. He's won the Carling Cup. Give Jones a bit of respect. Send Smalling to Napoli for Koulibaly. Do we think a little bit that Chris Smalling being in Italy has exposed Koulibaly to be a bit overrated, perhaps? Not that I think he's been as good as Koulibaly, but when you go to Italy, you just, as a centre-back, you just look 2 steps better than you would. Like Chiellini and all that lot. When you see him in the Champions League and they're good players. But if Chiellini had spent his career in the Premier League, I'm sure he would have been very good, but I don't think he would have had that longevity. He's still playing for Juventus. I doubt he would still be playing for the best team in England at his age. We really shouldn't accept a low fee for Smalling. Yeah, exactly. Ideally, we should get 20 million, but due to the decline in the market, we should get around 15. Yeah, there's definitely an understanding that they might have to pay a little bit less than they would have done. But I think that the fees that were being rumoured anyway were sort of 15 to 18 million, and now it's gone down to 10 to 12. And it just seems like a little bit of a... I mean, they're getting a great deal for a centre-back that they know is very good. Why is Jones still here? Seriously, because he's on a lot of money and because he's still got years left on it. We signed him to a contract extension when it was uncertain as to who our centre-backs would be. We had an out-of-fitness Eric Bailly. We didn't have Harry Maguire, I don't think, when Jones signed his extension. Axel Tuanzebe was in Aston Villa and was a sort of an unknown quantity. We had Chris Smalling, who looked like he was probably on the way out. And then you're left after that with who? So I guess you had to you can't just sell everyone immediately, and we gave him a contract extension, which maybe wasn't the best idea, but, that's just how things work sometimes, isn't it? 15 for Chris and 15 for Mike. Yeah, exactly, that's 30 million in total, because you get both. Does Jones deserve a testimonial? In the traditional sense of spending 10 years at a club, he does, but it's hard to say that you would sell 75,000 seats to see Phil Jones have a testimonial, wouldn't you? But I don't think he'll get one now, which is unfortunate for him, and I actually feel sorry for him for that, unfortunately. But that's just how it is. Right, we're going to be back this afternoon for a debate. It should be a very good one. We're going to be looking at whether United should be signing Jack Grealish or Donny van der Beek. It's going to be an interesting one. There's a lot to talk about. The Jack Grealish rumours seem to have just dried up a little bit recently. I don't know whether that's because a deal is going on behind the scenes and no leaks have come out, or whether United have turned the direction of the transfer gun in another towards another target. But we're going to be looking at that, who United should be signing, and whether we will actually sign anyone in that position. Obviously, Paul Pogba looks set to stay now. So there are some doubts as to whether United will be making any signings in that attacking midfield position. But it's a position that is continually rumoured to be happening. So we've got to take note and pay attention to that. Like I said, that should be out at around 4 o'clock for the debate. So make sure you check that one out. Thank you for joining me this morning. We'll see you next time.